The final portion of New York is finally coming to Upland. Yep, that's right, Queens, the last chance to participate in a fresh mint in the New York launch and the New York area is upon us. The stress test is tomorrow already. And so with the Queen launch set to go full release on Wednesday, we've got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get a move on. Hey there, John Henry here, ssftg. Welcome to the video. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome my friend. I hope to earn your like and subscription today. With Queens, the final and fifth borough of New York, we also have our last set of collections and collection speculation too. These are my anticipated collections. Again, full disclosure, it's at your own risk, right? Do your own due diligence, do your own homework, all that fun stuff. I'm just a talking head on YouTube. But there are a lot of places. There's anticipated to be between 16 and I think 22 different collections. And while Queens is massive, right? I mean, this place is huge. So there's a lot of properties that are going to be coming in that we want to, that we're going to want to keep our eyes on. Now, as you'll notice, the zones are, once again, just like with Detroit, not drawn into the map yet, so it's really hard to do these reviews without these drawn in. But as it stands, this is the closest one that I could really find that was outlined and labeled for me, so I didn't have to do anything. I believe this was on Pinterest or Flickr or wherever it was from, but you can find it with a quick Google search of the Queens neighborhoods and highways, and it'll show up right there. This is a really nice map to help us break things down. Now, tomorrow, the release, the stress test is going to be in Jackson Heights and Woodside, those two areas there. Now, Jackson Heights and Woodside by themselves are kind of interesting areas in and of themselves. They've got a lot going on in there. First off, Jackson Heights is a historic district, or has a historic district, with like 2,200 some odd buildings and different contributing objects. So there's a big historic district basically smack in the middle of Jackson Heights. And when you go over from Jackson Heights right next door to Woodside just southwest-ish, whatever, to Jackson Heights, it's also a great area of interest there too, because Woodside, they hold the St. Patrick's Day parade there. So, I mean, talk about a huge amount of attention coming into these spots. This is a big area. They also have quite a few parks and all kinds of different zones and things that, if this doesn't land in a collection, it would blow my mind. Now, again, the rest of the Queens launch takes place on Wednesday. It's the day after, and that gives us, a little bit of time, right? There's a lot of different areas that we can kind of eyeball in this, but, keep in mind that there is going to be a little bit of a day period, and secondary markets during that time span get really, really fun. That's where you can have a lot of flipping, a lot of play, a lot of volatility. A lot of people are in that game. I love doing it personally, so it's definitely something that I'm going to be looking to try to do as well, but it's basically minting and flipping and trying to grab properties that you think are good value and flipping them for strong profits on the secondary market because you only have those two zones for a day or two. Then, of course, after that, the rest of Queens launches, and that's usually where those two zones depress in value a little bit. This time, though, might be a little bit different, though, because we already talked about Jackson Heights and Woodside. Those are kind of some interesting areas in and of itself. They might already land in a collection. Something to consider. We have several other zones to eyeball though. So Astoria is right here. Astoria is a big one that jumps up on the list, and that's an obvious one for a couple reasons. If you do any search on Queens, it's basically the first thing that shows up everywhere. It's constantly coming up on basically every search place, and it kind of makes sense. It's kind of a hipster-esque business, tons of different tavernas, they're called, taverns, tavernas. I don't know what the difference is. If somebody could educate me on that in the comments, I don't know. Different cafes and hangout spots and all kinds of cool stuff in Astoria. Again, I don't think it's going to be anything crazy, but definitely a possibility of at least some form of standard collection. Now, alongside Astoria is Long Island City. And Long Island City, this is kind of like, well, I mean, this is the capital of skyscrapers for Queens, at least. It would fit right in if you're looking to build skyscrapers or apartment buildings or those giant tall buildings, and, who knows in the future which ones we're going to get. It fits perfectly. Long Island City is, it's right next door to Manhattan. It's basically the skyscraper capital of Queens. It's got a lot of stuff going on for it that we should keep our eyes on. And given the proximity to Manhattan, which is something that, may not necessarily have a value intrinsically built into it, but from a human element, a lot of people want to get as close to they can to Manhattan without necessarily spending Manhattan capital. Minting right on the shoreline could be a way in. Another one that jumps up on the list pretty quickly is Whitestone. That's going to be up here between the two bridges, and it's kind of this little area inside there. Now, if you look at it on the map, that's over here. But what's interesting isn't just on the map. You've got it because it's not slotted into the game yet. If you zoom into Whitestone and we look at it in Google Maps, you'll notice that it's not a very large area, and there's not very many streets inside of here. And if we zoom in even closer, you can see that the building count in here is not a huge amount, and obviously, some of them right on the shoreline are going to catch my attention. But even if this doesn't land in some kind of really high up there collection, given the way that this is landing in the way that it has kind of a cool factor, landing between the two bridges, it's kind of its own thing. I really do like those types of things, and it seems like historically that's also something that Upland does pay attention to as well. Now, keep in mind, Whitestone, this is more of a personal reasons kind of thing. I'm not saying this is going to be a collection or anything like that, but if you go into the street view in some of these, the housing in here is incredible. You know me and houses. I'm a sucker for a really cool looking house. I mean, drop it right on the shoreline and just... oh, I mean, look at some of these things. Like, really, how can you not love these? So although it's more of a personal reason kind of thing, I'm definitely still keeping an eye on this area because I would love to add some of these to my collection. Moving up on the list to the exclusive collection potential, or something that I think could definitely land there, is one that you're not going to actually find on the map here. It's right next to Whitestone, but if you go into Google Maps here and zoom back out really quick, you'll find it. Zoom out a little bit here. And then go right over here. It's right next to Whitestone on the other side of the road, and that's Malba. Now, Malba is a really, really interesting little kind of sub-zone. I don't know if it's going to be its own city or possibly just like a neighborhood via collection. But either way, the difference really here is that the minimum housing cost is astronomically expensive. I think it starts at $1 million or more for just this Malba area. And something that also I like keeping an eye on is it on the waterfront, right? Are these areas that are going to be highly sought after by just the human element? If we drop our character down on, we can see, wow, man, this is another one. Again, I mean, look at these houses. These are incredible looking, right up my alley. Even if it doesn't land in the exclusive collection side of things, just the housing side and kind of the difficulty of finding it. It's in its own little weird kind of area, I think could definitely land it in some form of collection. Next up is going to be Broadway, and whenever we go into any new city launch, there's a couple search terms that we always pretty much look for, right? Like Broadway, downtown, any of these major names that jump up to mind. It's like, oh, well, let's see if they have it. Greek town or any kind of such and such town. Those are the big hits when it comes to both collections and just generally people flocking to them. Broadway is one of them, but it kind of took me by surprise because Broadway is not a neighborhood or a zone. It's a road. That one definitely threw me a little bit. Broadway is right here. If you zoom in, it's this road coming right through there. And that is definitely something because of the way that looks. It starts from over here and kind of cuts down. Broadway, I think, is it borders not only Long Island City and Woodside, which it cuts between those two, and actually I think you can see it here. Yeah, we can see it right here. Broadway cuts right through here, and it borders Long Island City, it borders Jackson Heights, Woodside, and might even dip into Elmhurst, depending on where those zones land. So from a multi-collection perspective, definitely something that we want to keep an eye on. And just from a unique perspective, it's such an oddball one. Another zone for both area, neighborhood, as well as roads is going to be Rockaway. Rockaway, is this whole area down here, Rockaway Beach. And there's a couple interesting zones that we want to really pay attention to in here. If we zoom in a little bit closer, first off, we've got this one right here, Rockaway Beach Boulevard. Definitely something that we want to keep our eyes on, considering, we're looking at Rockaway. But this whole area down here is going to be a really, really cool zone. I can't draw the rectangle that way. This whole zone, anything inside of here, whenever we're introduced, and New Orleans was a big one for this too, with these narrow strips of land that have very few, even if they're not in collections, people love them because they're hard to get. They're difficult to get a hold of, and they bring a lot of competition to the table. Now, if we want a pretty good 1-2 punch, again, and if we jump across the way, we've got Beach Channel Drive. So we've got kind of a good 1-2 punch here with Rockaway Beach Boulevard. and Beach Channel Drive, obviously right on the water basically. If we zoom in a little bit closer, we can see that there's not a huge amount of properties that are inside of here. And if we drop it right on, let's go on Rockaway Boulevard since we started there and see what, I mean, look at this. Just such well-kept areas. There's ocean or water there. There's water there. There's water that way. You're surrounded. It's such a cool zone. And the housing in these areas are usually really neat too. Definitely something where, again, even if it doesn't necessarily land in like exclusive or anything like that, the challenging part is going to be the competition here. I think it should at least land in some form of collection. Another road that is high up on my list and definitely one that I want to watch is the Long Island Expressway. This mamma jamma is huge. It's also the road that you would take if you want to go to the Empire State Building. But if you follow that from Manhattan over into Queens, it's all of this, right? It goes all the way across. Big one. Whenever we have those big roads like that, they generally, if they are going to land in a collection, are going to be on the lower side of collections. But again, they tick the box of multi-collection aspects. And when we're looking at borders, something that I find Upland really likes looking for, whenever you have one of these roads that goes across not only a big distance, but also borders a lot of zones, meaning that like Flushing is an example, is the bottom border of this. It's also the upper portion of Jamaica. It's the top portion of Hollis and the bottom side of Bayside. That's what I mean by bordering roads. Whenever you have those, Upland seems to really like focusing those on collections, and this definitely ticks that box. Going along with the weird street names, which it seems like Queens just loves doing, it's another road that has some serious interest, and that's actually in a zone that we already talked about in Malba. And this is Boulevard, right here, just Boulevard. That's it. Just not Boulevard, it's just Boulevard. That's funky to me. And first off, again, I believe that's actually right where I dropped my dude, right? Let me yeah. Those are so cool looking. First off, the road is weird. Why does it keep sending me back here? The road is really weirdly named. It's right on the waterfront. There's a very, very small amount of properties that are actually on Boulevard. Period. It feels so weird not saying road or drive or something, that, it makes it a possibility of even an ultra rare collection, an exclusive collection, something that could be very difficult to get your hands on. And again, for me, even if this doesn't land in a collection, the houses here we already talked about in the Malba area, I'm going to be focusing on regardless because it's just beautiful here. The housing is really cool. The structures are really cool. Everything has a lot of interest here. And I do think that it has a really good potential of, if not landing in any, major collection, still having the potential of being a collection in and of itself. All right, well, that's going to do it for the collection speculation for Queens. I would love to have these zones drawn a little bit earlier and be able to do the video with the lines on there, but luckily for this one, found a pretty good map that overlaid it nicely and already had things labeled for us, so it made it pretty straightforward there. Again, if you're looking for that one, I'll try to remember to put a link in the description below, but I found it by Google searching Queens neighborhoods, and it popped up. It was like on Pinterest or Flickr or something like that. Until the next one, though, hopefully this one helps you out in your expeditions within Queens. Did I miss anything, right? Were there any collection potentials that I missed? Were there any streets or boulevards that I may have missed? Boulevard. Drop them in the comments. I always love hearing from you. Along with that, as we go into minting season, don't forget on the upcoming videos, drop in your new street views from Queens. I love seeing those new street views, especially the crazy ones. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. As always, you know where to get a hold of me if you have any questions, comments, or anything else. Thanks for watching. Enjoy. Have a fun time minting in Queens, and we'll see you in the next. Bye.